My name is Gabriella. I'm from Brazil, but I live in England now, and what I'm about to tell you still traumatizes me to this day. I have an older sister named Ines. She was 22 at the time, and I was 16. She was staying with our aunt in Brazil for her gap year, and I couldn't go because I still had school. So we mostly FaceTimed every day to stay close. But one night, a Friday night, everything changed. I was lying on my bed, just chatting with her on FaceTime, when suddenly she froze. Her eyes were wide, staring at something behind her phone that I couldn't see. I asked her, "What happened?" She whispered that for the past few days, she had seen a man holding an umbrella, just standing perfectly still outside. But she said something that made my heart drop. She said, "He has a shadow, so it can't be a ghost." I laughed at her for being scared. I really thought she was just overreacting. Then she ended the call. A few seconds later, she sent me a video. I watched it, and I told myself it was nothing. I tried to brush it off, but I shouldn't have. The next day, I went out with my friends, Benjamin, Sandra, and Darren. We were the type of kids who loved messing around and getting into trouble. That night, we went to the park at 11 p.m., vaping and hanging out, until Sandra pulled out a Ouija board. I was excited. I believed in the paranormal, but I didn't realize this night would change that belief forever. I FaceTimed my sister again and showed her the board. Her face instantly turned pale. She started screaming at me not to play with it. I ignored her. I hung up. She kept calling, but I didn't answer. Sandra started the session. She put her fingers on the planchette, the small piece you use on the board, and asked, "Is anyone here?" Nothing happened, so I grabbed the planchette myself and, like an idiot, asked, "Is the man my sister saw in Brazil a ghost or a human?" The moment I said those words, the Ouija board flew out of my hands. Not slipped, not fell, it was yanked with force and thrown onto the ground. We all screamed and ran home. My mom yelled at me for being out so late, but I couldn't even think straight. The next day, things got worse. The lights started switching off while I was in the shower. I heard voices calling my name when no one was home. I woke up with bruises on my knees that I couldn't explain. That's when I told my mom everything, every detail. She didn't ask a single question, she just called a priest. He came to our house, prayed over every room, blessed the house, blessed me. And after that, everything stopped. And I still wear a rosary every day, a cross necklace Christians use for protection. I never take it off, not after what happened. This happened in 2019 when I was working in Tokyo, Japan. I had moved to a place called Setagaya Ward. I loved it because it was a quiet city and it was only a 20-minute train ride to Tokyo. The house was an old 2-story house, but the problem was the neighbor next door. The door was red and rusted, as if no one had lived there for a long time, and the area in front was overgrown with knee-high weeds. The owner of that house must always be walking through those weeds. Every day when I left my house, I looked at the house next door and thought of that. The reason I was certain the house wasn't abandoned was because I had already asked the landlord when I moved in. The landlord told me about the man who lived there, who only slept there once a week or once a month. Other than that, the house was mostly empty, and she wasn't sure why. I felt uneasy, but I just brushed it off. Then one day, exhausted from work, I was walking home when I glanced over at my neighbor's house and saw a dark silhouette standing in the window. The figure was staring at me. I was startled for a moment, but then I turned my head away, pretended not to see him, and went back inside. A moment later, someone knocked on my front door. I asked who was outside, and a man told me in Japanese that he was my neighbor. I was momentarily lost in thought. Honestly, I didn't want to open the door. So, for about 5 minutes, I stood in silence, trying to decide what to do. Silence flowed, and I couldn't tell if he was still there or if he had left. And then the silence continued, and I finally assumed he had left, and I felt a little relieved. The next day, as I was leaving for work, my heart nearly stopped, because on the wall next to my front door was written in red, Henry, my name. It looked like it was written in red lipstick. I couldn't figure out how he knew my name. I suddenly remembered my landlord and felt a surge of anger. She was the only person I could imagine would know. I called her and got angry out of the blue. She, in a dumbfounded voice, said she'd never spoken to my neighbor. I thought she was lying, but there was nothing I could do, so I just let it slide. A few days later, the weeds that had once overgrown my neighbor's house were all neatly mowed. And then one day, I finally ran into my neighbor outside. He looked straight at me and shouted something in Japanese, his voice sharp and aggressive. I wasn't very good at it, so I couldn't understand. I just smiled awkwardly and waved at him. But I can't forget his face at that moment. It was filled with utter rage. I couldn't figure out what I had done wrong. I was just panicked and felt sweat drip down my back, but the man's expression was nothing but utter rage. It was a weekend a while later. I usually slept in until noon on weekends, so I was sleeping that day too. Suddenly, a loud noise outside my front door woke me up. At first, I couldn't tell what it was, but when I listened closely, I realized it was a chainsaw. The loud, whirring noise was right in front of my door. Then I heard a loud knock on the door. My heart raced. I had a gut feeling it was him, my neighbor. He stood there with the chainsaw running, revving it again and again. What was he planning? I didn't open the door, but he stood there for a long moment, continuing to rev the chainsaw. I yelled that I was calling the police, but he didn't seem to hear me over the noise of the chainsaw. I was terrified, but after a while, he left. A short time later, the police arrived and spoke with the man, who told them he'd only come to talk to me and that he'd used the chainsaw to cut down a tree in his yard. After that day, I decided to talk to my landlord and move elsewhere. I'll never forget the last time I moved. As I was loading my belongings onto the truck, I saw him standing in his window. He was looking at me with a smile. He was holding something in his hand, a small, rabbit-like animal, limp and dripping fresh blood. I was so shocked that I quickly packed my belongings and left. I never returned. To this day, I still don't know who that man was or what he wanted from me, but one thing is certain, he wasn't just strange, he was dangerous. It all started with me and my girlfriend arguing on the phone.
Why do you always lie to me, Marcus?
She screamed. She was very mad at me, but our relationship wasn't going anywhere anymore. We argued all the time. She was always busy and could never talk to me, but I was just annoyed with my life, and I always took it out on her. Of course, she didn't deserve it, but she would love to mess with me at the wrong times.
This time, I'll break up with you for real.
Once she said that, I didn't believe her, because this would be the 6th time she had said this. Fine, leave me. You're just going to come back anyway, I said with an attitude. As I sat there and waited for a response, there was nothing but silence. I was confused and just guessed she went on mute, but suddenly she whispered into the speaker.
Someone is here.
My heart dropped. At first, I thought she was joking. Stop joking, Layla. That's not funny. All I could hear was shuffling and movement. I didn't know what to do. All I could do was think of the worst. She whispered.
I'm not joking. I'm scared, Marcus. I'm scared.
After she said that, utter fear shocked through my body. I was scared too. I heard her hard breathing and the trembling in her voice.
I hear them coming upstairs.
I didn't know what to do. So many thoughts ran through my head, and all I could think of were the what-ifs. At first, I thought I should call the police, but I didn't want to hang up because what if something happened? I needed to hear. I couldn't use anyone else's phone. I was home alone. Then, I thought to text her mother, but I remembered her mom slept downstairs and the intruder probably already got to her. I had so much adrenaline, but I had to calm myself down so I could listen to what was happening. As I waited, I got impatient and scared, wondering if something was happening. So I texted her so my voice wouldn't get caught. I texted, "What's going on now?" As the text delivered, I heard my message ring from her phone. Her ringer was on. My heart dropped when I heard it. It was loud and vibrated the floor. She heard it as well and gasped. As what happened, I heard her door open. I knew it was too late, and I started to cry. She whispered to me,
I love you forever, Marcus.
Those were her last words. I was muted, of course, but all I could do was start praying. hoping, maybe, just maybe, the intruder wouldn't find her. Unfortunately, he found her, and what I heard that night will haunt me forever. I heard her screaming, yelling at him.
Stop! No, please!
I couldn't bear to hear her. I was so scared. I covered my ears, crying. I'm still not sure what he did to her, but her screams didn't last long. When it ended, I knew she was gone. I unmuted and whispered, "Layla, are you there?" It was silent, and after a while, I guess the phone died because the call just disconnected. The police announced my girlfriend and her mother dead on the scene. They took me in for questioning because I was on the phone and heard everything that night. They asked me so many questions, and I told them the whole story. They asked me, "Why didn't you call the police?" My eyes started to water, a hard lump forming in my throat. I told them I was scared and didn't want to hang up. Plus, I didn't know exactly where she lived. They believed me and finally gave in and took me off the suspect list. Good. I smiled. They will never find out what happened. She's been cheating on me for weeks. She would always lie to me, saying she was going to the store or somewhere else, but she was really going to his house. Little did she know I had her location and knew what was going on. That's why we argued. So, she just had to go. He doesn't deserve her. She's mine, all mine. Now, I'll have her with me forever, thanks to my buddy for handling my dirty work. I wait patiently for time to pass until he takes care of that boy, too. Then justice will be served. That's what she gets for cheating on me. Hi, I'm Ray. This isn't my own experience, but my friend Mary's, and it still gives me chills. Mary and I are 11th graders at a university known for one thing: the color pink. Our campus practically bleeds pink. Uniforms, banners, even the school merch. It used to be an all-girls school, and that history comes with stories. People say strange things happen after 6 p.m. Former students talk about hearing a dog bark late at night. Some even claim they've seen the foundress of the school roaming the halls. One afternoon, we had to stay late to finish a filming project. The building we were in has a reputation for being haunted, but I never took the rumors seriously. To see is to believe, right? While we were working, Mary asked me to go with her to the restroom so she could touch up her makeup. I didn't want to. The ladies' room is a floor down, but I agreed because I also needed water from the fountain by the teacher's faculty. I filled my flask and waited, wondering why she was taking so long. When I finally walked to the restroom entrance, Mary came bursting out and grabbed my arm. She looked pale and shaken. We ran back upstairs together. I demanded, "What's wrong?" She could barely speak at first, then told me what she'd seen.
I was doing my makeup in front of the mirror,
She said,
and you can see the cubicles behind you in the reflection. The closed cubicle that's supposed to be for teachers only. I saw a woman's head peeking over the top. Her hair was in a bun. I could see her slippers at the bottom, and she was wearing a long dress.
I couldn't tell whether to be terrified or skeptical, but Mary's face made it real. I joked, "Maybe you saw the foundress." But it didn't feel like a joke. We told our classmates. Some listened, some rolled their eyes, but nobody could fake the look on Mary's face. A few days later, at an organizational fair held on the 3rd floor, we walked past a wall of portraits. Mary froze and pointed. There, in a frame, was a painting of the exact woman she'd described. Under the portrait was the foundress's name and the year the school was founded. Seeing that painting made everything click, or maybe it made the whole thing worse. Whether you call it a ghost, a memory, or something else, Mary's face when she saw that portrait is something I won't forget.